Record. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the latest in our Meet the Lender series. I'm delighted to be joined today by Jonathan McCaffrey from Just. So Jonathan's going to firstly bring us up to date on where Just are, the changes that are hot off the press and relevant to helping you transact business with Just. Then I'd like him to sort of highlight any strong points that Just have got in their sort of armory right now. And then we'll finish off, if we've got time at the end, with any questions from anybody that's on the call. So as they say on Channel 4 with Big Brother, please keep it clean in case anybody's watching this afterwards. I won't promise it won't be contentious because I'm on the call, so it might be. But other than that, let's pass over now to Jonathan McCaffrey, who can bring us up to speed with Just and where you are in the current lifetime market, Jonathan.
Yeah, so quite well timed today. So thanks ever so much for the opportunity to present today, Stuart. Very good timing because we've got some big changes going live tomorrow. We did a presentation when we did the desktop valuations with yourselves. Was it 3 weeks ago? It feels like forever. It's been very, very busy recently for us. So what we've done as a business is I think we've really taken on board the feed us, and they've highlighted to us I think some of the challenges that they're experiencing with desktop valuations. We've listened to that feedback and we've responded. Last time I was with you, I talked about how Just had acted quite quickly on the back of the coronavirus, how we'd got our staff working from home, and how we'd put in place a policy around property valuations. Now, we were one of the first lenders to react to the market movements, so to desktop valuations, and we went live in the same week as More to Life. So we're very quick to respond, but the rest of the market has started to respond now as well. So we've adapted and what we're doing with some changes that are due to go live tomorrow. Business continuity has worked really well for Just. That's allowed us to make some high-level decisions to move our processing on our processes, and that's been really helpful to support advisors continuing writing business, and in particular continuing to help their clients as they need funds during this lockdown period. We have agreed some more limited protocols or more limited criteria for desktop-based valuations. We have a fuller property criteria online through the Just Advisor website. I'm going to go through a few of the changes and highlight how those are changing tomorrow on this call. What I'd also go on to say is that if you have cases that would have fit the previous lending criteria prior to lockdown, you can still submit those cases, and Just will effectively, as long as they're submitted on the same basis as business we can accept today, we will accept those cases and we will process them when we're able to. So let's say, for example, if you had a thatch roof property which doesn't currently fit the desktop-based lending criteria, you could still submit that case, and we would process that as soon as we are able when the lockdown has passed, or when valuers can get out and see the property. So what we did initially for the desktop valuations was we put in place on some of our J series products, so Just have 5 J series products, J1 to 5. We put in place retained cash facilities which sat within the drawdown feature of our product. As of tomorrow, we are removing those retained facilities. So just to be clear on this, as of tomorrow, we're moving beyond this immediate reaction to the market change for desktop valuations, and we're moving to a normalization period. So we are moving to a period where J1 to 5, using your sourcing system, you can see exactly what you can borrow today. and what facility you're able to have later without any retained facility. We think that's the best way of advisors being able to advise on what they can actually have today, rather than having a situation where you're not exactly sure what the client's going to have and when, because they're kind of contingent on when the lockdown might finish. And that's perhaps not the best place to be to give advice to a client. So we're moving away from having these retentions, and hopefully that will simplify things for advisors. So in terms of some of the things that are changing from tomorrow, so when we first introduced our product desktop-based valuations, we put in place minimum property values. So minimum property values of up to £1 million within the M25 and up to £750,000 in the rest of the UK. Now, what's changing from tomorrow is we're moving up to £1 million property value for the rest of the UK and up to £2 million property value within the M25. So let's go live from tomorrow. And so if you have those cases and you'd like to proceed with a lender, by all means submit those cases to us either today or tomorrow. We can get those moving forward for you. The other change for us is in terms of the regions of the UK that we can lend in. So currently, as of today, desktop valuations, we can do England, Wales and mainland Scotland. As of tomorrow, we can also cover Northern Ireland as well. So Northern Ireland, we lend on the J1 and J2 products. So advisors are able to access those products from tomorrow. So I'd encourage any advisors in Northern Ireland and they're looking to place business. Great news, you have a lender back in the marketplace who can lend money as of tomorrow. All the other aspects are the same for Just. So we still have quite a limited range of the kind of properties we can lend on. They have to be of a slightly, they have to be standard construction, built between the 1st of January 1850 and the 31st of December 2017. So they have to be over 3 years old. We have fuller criteria on the Just Advisor website, and if you have any interest in finding out a bit more about our lending criteria, by all means, either at the end of this call we can talk about those specific cases, or we could send you a link to follow it up with. We do also have an additional property questionnaire for Just. Now, what the feedback we're getting from advisors actually is very positive on the additional property questionnaire from advisors, largely because where advisors are more experienced in submitting cases, they've often have cause to challenge valuations for any number of reasons, but they often don't have the evidence on file that gives them the ability to sort of counter what the valuer is saying, because there's no photographic evidence, for example. So what the additional property questionnaire is doing is it's creating a situation where advisors can gather a bit more property information on the property, which is useful because it would come up in the survey normally anyway. And they're also able to gather internal photographs of the property. Normally an advisor, if they're seeing the client, would have a quick look around the property and see it for themselves. But it does mean you can have some record on file of the state and the condition of the property, and then it helps you advise that customer in terms of where they might be able to lend effectively. So which lender might be able to place their business or take their business. There is a declaration on the property lending criteria form, so the additional property questionnaire. I'm going to talk about signatures just when we do the Q&A. That's probably the easiest way of doing it. Our online signatures for the Just application form and for this additional property questionnaire, they only work currently on the Explorer web browser. Now, I appreciate lots of advisors don't use Explorer. It's kind of an old, antiquated web browser. We have a solution in place for customers that doesn't work for. So we have those customers, then we'll talk about that when we get into the Q&A. So in terms of managing your expectations, as we're moving to a less complicated amendment to our rules, so we're moving away from doing property retentions, we're in a position where it's much easier to produce the KFIs. So the issues that we had producing KFIs will go away because there's less manual intervention needed now. So that's really helpful. For any desktop valuation, we still will need to do a future physical valuation. So customers should be aware of that, and please do try and make that clear to your clients. Wherever possible, we are also trying to work around advisor needs. So if you are finding, for example, when you're sending a file through to us, it's bouncing, it might be because the size is so big because you're also sending images. If you do find a situation like that, I would encourage advisors where they're producing photographs or they're getting photographs from the customer, if it's all possible, if you can convert those into PDF, that's really helpful for us. And it also massively reduces the size of the file, so it makes it a little bit easier to send through to us. And also where you are sending through multiple emails to Just, please can you also make sure that each email is titled in a way that allows us to identify them as being part of the same group of emails. That makes sense. So let's say, for example, it's for a client and you've put your reference in, and you might have a couple of emails, so you might number them, for example. So this is number one of however many. So if you could do that, that's really, really helpful for us. So just moving on to, I suppose, any of the questions that you have from me. I'm really keen to answer any questions that you have, and hopefully we can resolve some of those questions that perhaps have arisen over the last couple of weeks as we've been doing desktop valuations.
Brilliant, Jonathan. Thank you very much for that. A good sort of updated summary. You caught me short halfway through my chocolate bar. A couple of questions that have come in. I'm going to fire these at you, and then we can move it to an open forum for anybody that wants to ask questions that you've not covered. One of the questions that was posed earlier on, I think you've addressed with regards to retentions, etc. But there's a question here from Nick. What news from Just's point of view, or even views on progress towards physical valuations after the Prime Minister's announcement and subsequent release of papers? Any noises coming out of your valuers with regards to getting back to any level of physical valuations?
Nothing so far. So they need to get to grips with the latest guidance from the government. So the guidance were issued to employers yesterday. So we need to give them a little bit of time to work through the guidelines. I don't expect those to be before school children go back to school. So that's my personal view. As a business, we will work with Countrywide, and we'll try to establish when they're able to go back and do the physical valuations. But it is dependent on when they are ready to do it. So when they believe it's safe and following the right social distancing rules.
I guess RICS will also have some sort of direction on that for all surveying firms and things. So they have to stick in line with the RICS decisions and guidance. Subsequent to that, do you think desktop valuations are going to stay as a feature moving forward? Because out of this crisis, I think there will be things that will change forever. Do you think desktop valuations might be a part of the process as an option as we move forward?
Yeah, so in my day-to-day role, I look after a number of specialist relationships. I think the things that are likely to stay, I think advisors are using remote working more often. I think that will stay in place for more business, particularly if the value of the case is lower. I think where advisors are gathering a bit more information from customers, particularly around the condition of the property, I think that will stay. So things like gathering photographs and so on as well, because that's really helpful. Later on in the journey when you're challenging a case and you need to have a little bit of evidence. And in terms of desktop valuations, we need to see the evidence coming back in, but the evidence is really positive at the moment. So we're getting really good feedback in terms of the valuations of property are coming in kind of in line with expectations. We're not seeing anomalies. I think some lenders have some real challenges about the potential issues they might have in their book because they're not verifying, that whether properties actually meet their lending criteria. We are checking that. So I think we should be in a really good position when we do the physical valuations after desktop valuations, after the COVID kind of pandemic passes, to verify the desktop valuations that we've had. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah. And I would have thought, obviously, from a cost basis, it's much cheaper doing desktop valuations. So I would hope personally that we're able to continue in some way for most properties doing desktop valuations, but there are always going to be properties that fall outside of the desktop valuation criteria. So listed properties, for example, thatched cottages, highlands and islands, the special unique property, the best one on the street kind of property, that doesn't fit very well in a desktop criteria.
Absolutely agreed. Last question before we open it up from Sarah. You mentioned application can still be put in on and sort of sit there and wait for full valuations and things to come back on stream. Are rates going to be guaranteed by Just, or is that subject to those rates being pulled? Is there any period of time where they're underwritten and warranted?
Yeah, so if a case is submitted today, so our rates are changing tomorrow. If a case is submitted today, it will be, the rate is guaranteed normally for 3 months from the date of submission. It's now going to be guaranteed for 6 months. So if your advisor submits a case today, as long as it completes within 6 months, we'll hold the rate. Now, it costs us money to reoffer cases. So it is in our interests to hold rates when they're in offer. So if you find you're in a situation where you're getting close to completion on a case or the 6 months, please do ask us if you can keep the old offer going. Does that make sense, Stuart?
Yeah,
So
it does make sense. I guess the supplementary to that is if rates, I've noticed this week there's a couple of lenders that are decreasing rates. If Just were to decrease those again, can customers switch to a cheaper rate, or are they then locked in for 6 months? So does it work both ways in their favour?
yeah, so lifetime mortgages are an advised sale. The advisor tells us what they want to do. So if an advisor tells us they want to go for a different rate, then we will act on their instruction. So, but we will not tell advisors they have to change their advice because our product's changed or the rates have changed. It's their decision. Now we're conscious that for lots of advisors, redoing the advice involves lots of additional work. So it depends very much sort of on the individual case, the individual client needs, and what's the right thing for that client. But if a client, if you were looking to switch from one product to another, there is some administration involved in that. So wherever possible, if you could liaise with us in terms of what you're doing, we'll try and manage that and make that as smooth as possible. When we've got to the offer stage, we've already committed financially to certain aspects of the work. So we'd really prefer it if post-offer you didn't do that a lot.
Okay.
Does that make sense, Stuart?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay, I'm going to throw the floor open. If anybody's got any additional questions, please feel free to throw those at Jonathan. Yeah, Andy? Hang on.
Yeah, the automated valuation process is underway with all lenders, really.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of all this, when the valuers are able to visit, you can have a backlog of cases where the physical valuation is then needed, as well as physical valuations for all the new cases, which are presumably being parked by many advisors pending release from lockdown. Do you see, or do the valuers foresee, a big backlog and a log jam, if you like, going forward, even once we're out of lockdown, because of the increased volume needed?
Yes, there will be. So there's a couple of reasons for there being a backlog. So as you say, the cases are stacking up. We've experienced a bit of a backlog with desktop valuations because the interest in desktop valuations was higher than expected. So Countrywide have had to bring some additional valuers back out of furlough. So that's a good thing, obviously, because they've got work to do. I think it's quite likely that depending on how the lockdown comes to an end, It's likely to be in stages, as outlined on Sunday. And that means that you might have we're likely to have a situation where some valuers might have some caring needs that they still need to attend to, and so aren't able to fully go back to work. So it may be that the capacity of valuers is kind of reduced at a time when we need to get more valuations done. So I do think, yeah, a backlog is quite likely, and that does make me think that we will probably need to continue with desktop valuations for longer than initially expected. So our current outline plan is that we'd have 2 weeks beyond the end of lockdown for desktop valuations, but it might be we would continue with them for longer to manage that impact. Does that answer your question, Andy?
Yeah, honest answer. Thank you.
I think the other factor there as well to take into account is that even when valuers physically start valuing again, there will be customers for medical reasons, social distancing reasons, that won't be comfortable or won't want people going into the house still. So it might also factor in the continuation of desktop valuations in those circumstances as well, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good. Any other questions? Craig, Trevor, Darren, Lisa? No? Okay, great. I think we'll wrap this up then. Jonathan, thank you very much. Hopefully that was a useful update for everybody. This will be going out live on our COVID-19 page and social media as well. So please reference it if anybody wants the latest from Just to use this as a source of information. Obviously with the caveat, as we always say, that it's correct right now, but it could be in a day's time, things change again. But check the COVID-19 page for the very latest news. And airsourcing.co.uk if you aren't sure of the web address to go to. So thank you very much, Jonathan. Thank you very much all for attending. Yep. And we look forward to seeing you.
Sorry.
Yeah, go on.
Just very good. I apologise. I said I'd talk about this, and I just realised I didn't mention it. So if your customer can't complete our online signature, which, as I said, only works on the Explorer web browser, we do have a piece of wording they can use, which is very specific. So I'd encourage advisors to talk to the normal Just point of contact. But it would be wording which is, please take this email as confirmation that I or we confirm we have read and understood the completed the application and additional property questionnaire with name of the advisor. I and we can confirm the information provided to Just it's correct to the best of our knowledge. So we will allow that wording instead of a signature, so a physical signature or an online signature. Does that make sense?
Brilliant. Oh, Darren's indicating that he's got a question on that one. Let me unmute you. Go on then.
If Mr. and Mrs., for example, share an email address, how can you be sure they've both consented to that?
Well, they'd say we.
You'd be happy with the wording just saying we?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
I love simple solutions.
Yeah.
This is just a temporary measure for lockdown.
Yeah.
So just to be clear about that. And that also applies to the property declaration as well.
Fabulous.
So,
thank you, Darren, for your question. Okay, right, let's wrap this up. As I say, any point of reference, feel free to get onto our online chat or email us if you need anything else. And Jonathan, obviously, and his team at Just will be happy to help you. So just contact your Just contact if you need to, or come to us and we'll get it for you. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
thank you.
Thanks very much.
Stuart.